Hello. Are you guys ready for the main event? Yeah? You guys ready? Are you guys ready? Okay, good. All right, so we got 6 very special panelists today. I think all these folks have been at the Gigafactory, so it's going to be very interesting to see what they have to say. So let's bring up our first panelist. This is a gentleman that is an analyst for ARK Invest. Please welcome Sam Corris. Sam Corris to the stage. Thank you very much. Next on deck, from Monroe and Associates, Mr. Corey Steuben. Come on, sir. Next up, from New Street Research, please welcome Pierre Farragut. Next up, from Retail, please welcome Rob Maurer. Next up, from Retail, please welcome Dave Lee. And last but not least, the greatest mustache in the history of the world, please welcome back Sandy Monroe. Okay, so for those that follow my channel, you know I like to keep these very conversational. We're just going to try to explore different topics and really see where the conversation goes. I'll start with Sam. So Sam, you were at Giga. You kind of saw a few things there. Tell us how did you feel after you saw the presentation, and more importantly, after you saw the tour? What were the kind of feelings that were going through your mind? And maybe put it within context of other companies that you follow and what you saw at that facility today.
Sure. There we go. So the Gigafactory, all of the Gigafactories are very impressive just in terms of the scale. And I feel like the presentation today was very detail-oriented. And the vibe, obviously I'm checking Twitter during the presentation. And it seems like the overall expectation from the crowd was they wanted a big announcement. They wanted a shiny announcement of a next generation vehicle. But if you take a step back, it's like, what did people want? It seems like they wanted a photo of what the car would look like. And instead, what Tesla gave was, nearly 3 hours of the meat and potatoes of how they're actually going to bring that car to market at that price point at scale. So I think it was a lot of these little nuggets that really make it all come together that, I feel like the reaction on Twitter wasn't necessarily grasping all of those details coming together. And then seeing the factory's, incredibly impressive, especially how quickly it went up. They had the dry battery electrode rolls going, and you see this process going. So overall, I would say a very, very impressive day.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so, and I was talking briefly with Pierre as well beforehand, and it seemed like you share some of those sort of same thoughts where there was a lot of detail that was shared that you thought was interesting. Maybe can you elaborate more on what you saw, Pierre, that was kind of maybe eye-opening or helps you think better about how to model Tesla and its potential in the future?
Yes, that's really what I liked a lot about today is the level of transparency of the company, like taking us through the fab, getting views on how many robots do you have on the assembly line, how many robots do you have on the body in white part of the fab, what's like the length of the paint shop. All this information to me is very, very rich, very valuable, because that's what I'm using at the end of the day to try and figure out how Tesla is taking costs down, how the gross margin is building up over time. So I thought that was very, very interesting. And then in the presentations, that's the same thing, getting into the details of how much silicon carbide you will get, like in the Model 2. That's very, very interesting to me. That's very interesting to understand. And having the ability to speak to Colin, to understand what's the new architecture, the new inverter, all these things are extremely extremely rich. And I think the one thing that really blew me away is to see this, like the dry coating at industrial scale. So that's real. I still wasn't sure it was real. I saw it. And so you see this machine that is maybe the size of that space, and it's like rolling the film that will get into the battery cell, and it's going relatively slowly. And at some point, it's going to go 10 times faster. And when it goes 10 times faster, it's going to be producing 10 times more batteries. And the unit manufacturing overhead of each battery is going to be divided by 10 because the cost of doing it is the cost of using the machine. And so I think it's really, really impressive to see that, like, a couple of years after the battery day, they have delivered what they say they would deliver.
That's great to know. Maybe Rob, did you find the same level of sort of insight that Pierre did? Did anything else stand out to you that was kind of eye-opening from your tour?
Hey, everybody. I think Sam and Pierre put it pretty well. You know, one of the things we were talking about going into the events, we were kind of having an investor meeting before, and the question came up about, okay, this next generation platform, Tesla's talked about cutting costs by 50%. How do they actually get there? And I think people are just kind of hoping that there's some like magic thing, like, oh, they're going to cast the entire vehicle, and that's gonna be the thing that does it. But I think what we really heard from Tesla today is, you know, it's sort of like death by 1,000 cuts, right? Like Tesla is focused all the way through their like tier 3 suppliers and how they can go out to those companies and help them scale their business in a cost-effective way, all the way up through delivering the vehicle to customers, and then even beyond that through Tesla Insurance and service. They're just entirely focused through the entire process about how to keep costs low because they know that they need to do that. And that's such a contrast versus, I was laughing at this during the presentation because I always kind of make fun of Toyota, but when you're sitting there and you're listening to Tesla present about this stuff versus a company like Toyota and they're sitting there and kind of scratching their heads like, should we make a dedicated EV platform or like maybe not, I don't know. And then Tesla's like, not only a dedicated platform, but entirely dedicated through the entire supply chain about, you know, making this cost effective. So I think for those that follow the company closely, you heard a lot of good things that you wanted to hear today. And if you're someone that was going into the event looking for something that was a little bit more flashy, like an unveiling of some sort, you know, we got the Mexico factory a little bit afterwards. But I think if you're going into it, you're probably disappointed with like an unveiling. But for those that are a little bit more longer term focused, I think we learned a lot of really interesting and beneficial stuff. And it gives me confidence that Tesla has a good grasp of the problem and how to solve the problem as well.
Okay. So, yeah, right. It's okay. So we're getting some requests if we can maybe keep it, we're going to try to pump up the volume, but it's hard to do unless maybe the crowd gets a little bit quieter, maybe. But just make sure, we're going to try our best to get the volumes right. Thank you all very much. So, Sandy, when you hear Rob talk about this sort of death by 1,000 cuts, or like, you know, this process where Tesla's going down and really honing in on all these different things to really get the cost down, how much of that is like a moat, and how much of that is tied to, is it a cultural thing? Is it hard to replicate? Like, is it just like why can Tesla do it so well versus its peers?
Okay, so every major company on the planet knows what's right and knows what areas they have to attack. The problem is that there's so many internal politics, so many internal politicians that get in the way of progress. And so I only worked for one major OEM, Ford Motor Company. I was there for 10 years. Luckily, I was on the technical ladder, not the management ladder. And I got all the way up, and you had to take management classes. And basically what they teach you is to be a little on the cutthroat side. You got to try and figure out how you're going to survive at the expense of some other department. And I think that what Tesla's done, and he said it many, many times, they work as teams. They want to take the manufacturing engineering, the product design engineering, the HR people from the factory floor, and finance, and bring them all into the same team to work on a common problem so that they can get a solution that's good for the company. And it just dawned on me when I said that. They're working for the betterment of Tesla, and most companies look for the betterment of the person. And that's what's different about Tesla.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Dave, what's one thing that was maybe surprising, or anything that was, after you toured the factory or the information that was given, is there anything that really stood out, even if it was covered here? Like, what was something that really stood out from your time today at Giga Texas?
Yeah, hello. Hey, guys. Hey, what's up? Hey. Yeah, I wish everybody could have gone on the factory tour. It was probably the best factory tour I've seen. I've been to Fremont a few times, and I saw the Austin, the Giga one last year. But this time around, the factory was just bustling. It was just pumping out cars. Every station, everyone knew what they're doing. It's just well laid out, like start to finish, compared to Fremont, which is very just kind of scattered a bit. And the thing that was the home run for me was the very end, where they showed the dry electrode machine. So they said they have 5 of them right now, and they say they're on generation 6. And the latest generation is in Austin. Generation 5 is in Fremont right now. So Texas has generation 6. They have 5 of them, and this thing they're saying is rolling out this electrode material like constantly. It's just and it's completely automated. It's like pretty much, there's some people maybe doing a little stuff, but it's automated. And they have this roll, and they have the roll in front where they showed all of us, and it was probably about 6 feet wide and probably like 3 feet or so in diameter. And it's this big electrode roll that they've rolled. And you don't need any drying time. It's just, they're whipping it out almost instantly. And then they cut this thing into I think 16 parts, what was it? They cut it into 16 parts, and that goes into the batteries straight. And it's like, I think Tesla is actually like way ahead of what most people think they are in terms of battery technology. They actually have this thing working. It's more about, I think, optimization and constant improvement. And they said that they're working on generation 7 right now of the machine, and they hope to have that out later this year. So there's a lot that Tesla isn't publicly announcing with what they're doing, but it ends up in the product, and that's the reason why they're able to do what they're able to do. And so, yeah, the 4680 electrode, that's just mind-boggling.
Wow, okay. Corey, how hard is that going to be to replicate? Would you consider that to be a moat? Does it really create that much of a separation between Tesla and everybody else? How do you think about that technology?
It's a huge separation because what Dave just explained to us, they called it the mother roll. And Sandy and I asked, how long is that mother roll? And they said, it's like 1.5 or 2 kilometers long. And then they cut it into 16 pieces. The amount of vertical integration you see in the Gigafactory is incredible. Most other OEMs are outsourcing their battery manufacturing. And every time you outsource anything, there's profit margin built into that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 supplier. So every time Tesla vertically integrates any process, they're automatically realizing the cost savings of the profit margin that they're not being charged by a supplier. And it's just mind-blowing to walk by not only the battery production, they're stamping the cans for the battery, and they have their seat line. So Sandy famously says that the seats are the most comfortable seats in the world, and they're manufacturing them in the plant. This is a cultural difference. Tesla has a cultural difference in the way that they go about designing the vehicles and manufacturing the vehicles. And one of the most amazing slides I saw was how they're going to get to that 50% cost reduction. They highlighted it was 3 things. It was the vehicle design for 1/3, it was the battery and the powertrain for the other third, and manufacturing. Manufacturing is typically ignored by a lot of OEMs because it doesn't make up a large percentage of the cost. if you look at the total cost to manufacture the vehicle, it's not that much of a focus for traditional OEMs. But Tesla is intent on focusing on being able to manufacture at scales that are beyond what a lot of traditional OEMs are focusing on. So I was actually pretty impressed because Sandy and I are really focused on the technical details, and I thought today's presentation was very technical. So a lot of the investors in the crowd seemed like their eyes were glazing over, and Sandy and I were pretty giddy. So.
Okay. So maybe this question's for Sam and Pierre. Maybe Pierre, do you think institutionals are well equipped to understand that type of information that was shared today? Like, is there a lot of complexity there that maybe it's so different versus every other maybe car maker or type of company that reports that kind of thing? Do you think there is anything that Tesla could do better, or is it just they're so maybe ahead is the wrong word, but are they just approaching it so differently that might be hard to grasp? How do you think about that question?
So on the first part of your question, you have to know that there are two types of institutional investors. You have my clients and others.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So my clients are doing all right. They get it.
And yours are the smart ones. Okay.
They are well educated. They have access to the right research, and that's perfect. For others, it's a struggle. If you know some of them, send them to me. I have the good word.
Fair enough.
No, more seriously, so the one thing I love about Tesla is that that's really the name for which you have more knowledge in the retail community than in the institutional community, which is fairly impressive. It's definitely true that there is a deficit of education with institutional investors about what Tesla is. And this is not, these guys are totally fine. They are very smart people. But the real difficulty is when you are an institutional investor, and I'm not talking about everybody, of course. Some of them are my clients. Remember, the difficulty for these guys that they have like a fiduciary duty. They manage the money of someone else. And when you manage the money of someone else, you have to frame a lot what you do. So you need to be somewhat capable of putting things into a box. And so Tesla, is it a car manufacturer? Well, it doesn't look like it is, okay? And is that like a smartphone manufacturer? No, definitely not. And so they don't know what Tesla is, and they don't know how to think about it. It's very easy for an institutional investor to understand that a software company is going to do something magic nobody else can do. But when you try to explain them, these guys do a car in a way that nobody else can do, and I think like what Sandy said about like the way they work together, the way they're more integrated and then can deliver like very, very significant innovation at a very high pace thanks to that. These are not things institutional investors are used to listen to hear. And so it's taking time, yes. So the retail is ahead of institutional on this name.
Okay, that's fair. Sam, same question to you.
Yeah, I think the Tesla community is great at educating everyone. So keep tweeting, keep doing the podcast. Like that's terrific for all investors. And I think what's kind of interesting is Tesla is incredibly good at telling you exactly what they're going to do. It's just what they tell you they're going to do sounds crazy if you come in with preconceived notions. And so I think a lot of times what happens is they'll come out and they'll say what they're going to do. And then people just don't listen because, as Pierre was saying, maybe it doesn't fit into their box or their, preconceived notion of what is possible. And then they go ahead and they do it. And that's that. And then the next thing comes and they say what they're going to do. And then everyone says, no, that's not possible. And then they go ahead and they continue to execute on that. And so I think we're kind of at this next point in that phase where, they came out originally, right? You go back. No one said they were going to be able to scale Model 3, right? And, just yesterday, someone from Toyota tears down the car and they say, wow, this is pretty good manufacturing, right? That's very different from saying, what are you going to do when Toyota starts to manufacture an EV? And now we're at this next phase of growth here where they're looking for this next generation platform. They come out and they say, here's a permanent magnet motor with no rare earth metals. It's going to cost $1,000, right? So they say that, and it's like, that alone, maybe that doesn't mean anything, but then you go ahead and you do the math and you say 75 kilowatt hour battery pack with a $1,000 motor that's efficient enough to use, iron phosphate cells so you can keep cutting those costs. And then all of a sudden you have a drivetrain that's, $6,000-ish dollars and 25% of the cost of the car. That's like a rough rule of thumb for how you get to the drivetrain. And all of a sudden you're at a $25,000 vehicle. And Pierre put out slides on this breakdown in more detail, but it's like they've laid it out in very simple steps. And so it's a question of, do you believe that they can execute on this, or do you think that they're making it up? And I think it's pretty clear that they've been executing on what they've said they'll do.
So maybe that's great. That's phenomenal. Yeah. So let me maybe ask this question to the panel. $25,000 compact car, is that real or not, based on what you saw? Is that a legitimate hypothesis that Tesla will release a compact car for $25,000? Is that legitimate, do you think?
I think if you were listening, they announced the Cyber Sedan and people just weren't listening.
Yeah, so 50% off of a Model 3 is $17,500, and you can sell a $17,500 cost vehicle for $25,000 and make enough profit to sustain the business case. And I was actually interviewed a couple of months ago, and I said a $25,000 vehicle is really not what the American consumer deserves. I feel like we're expecting too much, but with everything that Tesla showed today, I feel like they've forged a plan forward where that can become a reality.
I'll tell you, what I think is that when you start looking at the next generation of car buyers, they want an electric vehicle. They won't have enough money. As a matter of fact, I don't know who it was, but somebody came along and said, hey, my 12-year-old daughter wants to become an engineer because of what's going on with the car industry. And I think that the next generation, or the generation that isn't in this room, not represented in this room, they're the ones who are going to want that $25,000 car. And I'm telling you what, they're going to make money on every one of them. Everything that we've ever seen from Tesla makes a higher gross margin than anybody else on the planet. Now that they've got volume, there's no question in my mind that they're going to kick ass and take no names.
So I think like the $17,000 bill of material is probably a stretch. That's like their internal target. But to sell like a $25,000 MSRP car, that means on average you make $27,000 per car because you have options and things like that. And Tesla doesn't leave any money on the table with dealers or anything like that. So that's a net revenue for them. So if they can pull together a car at $21,000, we're talking a 20% plus gross margin car already. When you look at the gross margins the industry is making on a Corolla, it's like in single digits. So we have already a very, very high level of confidence. Tesla is going to sell a car for $25,000 and is going to be very profitable doing that. So that's one thing. And I don't even need to believe in the 50% cost reduction to believe in that. Then the second thing is, in terms of affordability, a $25,000 car that is electric, that has a drivetrain that doesn't need maintenance for 1 million miles, that is insured by Tesla, and that is very cheaply insured because it's very safe. It's actually, we did the math on a full timeline, like on a 12-year full ownership cycle. It is actually the same total cost of ownership as a $17,000 car, IC car. So anybody who can today afford a $17,000 car is going to be able to afford a $25,000 Tesla. And that means 80% of the market is up for grab for Tesla.
Hey, Farzad, can I ask a question?
Please. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask the question to the panel. This is just a quick survey question. Just a quick answer. Do you think the next gen car, the 25, whatever, thousand, whatever car, will it be a cyber sedanish, like a small car, or will it be a regular stamped small car? Let's go from Sam, and don't worry about explaining it. I'm just curious hearing your gut answer here.
I'm really getting thrown all the first questions over here. I think the next generation platform will be cyber.
Yeah, I think the next generation platform is less about what it'll look like and more about the core architectural elements. So I think that the powertrain development is going to be common and carried throughout not only the small vehicle, but backwards compatible to the 3, the S, the X, the Y, the Cybertruck. And then the battery technology has been improving over time. So when they say next generation, I think if you look at how Tesla made backwards compatible the Model 3 and Model Y powertrains into the S, the X, and even the Plaid, I think that it's more about the core architectural elements and less about whether it looks like a Cybertruck or looks like a cyber sedan. And I think they're really focused on the core architectural elements.
So if you had to choose one, which one would it be?
Answer the question.
I think it'll look like more like a Model 3, less like a Cybertruck.
Yeah, I think in terms of look and feel, it's to me definitely going to be like a smaller Model 3 or a smaller Model Y, because it's going to be a very high volume car. It's going to be like a 10 million units kind of car. So you can't afford an extreme look like the Cybertruck. In terms of architecture, I think it's going to be a 1,000 volt powertrain, and I think the casting will go very high from back to bottom. So it will be very similar to the Cybertruck in terms of architecture for the body and for the powertrain.
I'm also on team Model 3 aesthetic. Not necessarily that, but non-cyber, I guess.
Sandy.
Not me. Okay, so what I think they're going to do is they're going to create a box, a $25,000 box, and that box is going to be geared toward the next generation of car buyers. It's going to look kind of totally different than a Tesla. And the reason for that is because they're geared toward the kid that's going to college, or they're geared toward someone who needs transportation from here to the what do you call it? What's the drugstore or whatever. This is going to be for old and young people, and that's where the $25,000 car is going to be, and it's going to be made in Mexico, and they're going to make a shitload of them, and it's going to be a ton of money. I don't think it's going to look anything like a 3, an S, or a Cybertruck. It's going to be something that's going to be for the masses. Yeah, there.
I think.
Hey, wait a minute. What's your answer?
Yeah, what's your
David?
answer?
Come on, let's go.
All right. I think it's gonna be a small SUV. Probably not cyber. I think they'll skip the sedan. I don't think there's a big market for small cars. I think the small SUV has like at least 5x bigger market. So yeah, that's my gut right now.
And so when you're thinking about the number of units they'll sell every year, is this 10 million units a year, 8 million units a year? How are you guys thinking about when it's fully ramped? Like what percentage of the total business that Tesla's going to sell is going to be this compact car? And how do you guys think about robotaxi on top of that as well? Pierre.
Like 50%. I think the potential of, if you look at affordability, and if you think Tesla is like the price of the Model S, the Model X, the Model Y, and the Model 3 will remain in the ballpark of where they are today. I think Tesla is probably maxed out in high single digits on these models, like so 8 million units maybe. And then you add the Cybertruck, and everything else will have to be the Model 2, like the next gen car.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
I would say the development of FSD is going to determine a lot of the outlook, right? They asked today, how many models do you need? And if they can achieve full self-driving as we think they can, as Elon thinks they can, then I think that really changes the outlook of what type of vehicles you create. Because if you have an autonomous vehicle, then all of a sudden, who cares compact, who cares sedan, who cares SUV? It's like you're going to optimize to the robo-taxi form factor, which is going to be, I think, different than everything we have today. And I think autonomous itself and the work from Tasha Keeney, suggests that autonomous should lead to a lot of form factor diversification as well. So I think that development alongside the traditional electric vehicle path is going to determine, what the next 5 years look like.
Okay. Any other thoughts around number of... Go ahead.
Yeah, I think when you think about it, if Tesla can make a car for $25K and it could drive itself, I don't understand what other car people want to buy at that point. So if there's some 80-something million cars sold every year, wouldn't at least half the people want a car like that? I mean, yeah, I think it comes to a point where Tesla can sell everything they can make. I think they could easily sell 15 million of these cars every year if they could make that, or even more. But what's interesting also is Tesla's vehicle engineering team, they focus on something for a couple of years and they move on to the next project, right? So it was the Model 3, then the Model Y, and then it's this next-gen vehicle. So the question is, what's after the next-gen vehicle? What are all of these vehicle engineers going to be working on? And I think the bigger picture is they're going to revisit these vehicles to basically do a step change. So the first $25,000 vehicle in 5 or 10 years is going to have a completely different manufacturing approach and process, efficiencies. And so, yeah, it's just going to get better over time. And so that's good. This is going to be, I think, Tesla's main vehicle, probably 75% or more, of their sales.
Go ahead, Sandy.
A lot of you folks have kids, and they may be the kind of kids that you like. A lot of parents don't care for their kids. But anyways, if you like your child, you have an option. You have the option of either buying them a used car for 25 grand so they can go to college, or you can have the option of a $25,000 Tesla, which will have self-driving, which means that your idiot kid, even if you don't like them, they do grow out of it. Anyhow, so even your idiot kid, if he's got self-driving, you can switch it on or something like that and keep them out of trouble. And basically, if you've got a $25,000 car, you can either buy that or an old Pontiac, which is a gas guzzler. And you know what? The kids aren't going to go for that. They don't want that shit. So here's the thing. A $25,000 Tesla is going to sell a shitload of cars. Think about it. What are the biggest selling cars in history? Volkswagen Beetle and a Model T. Guess where I'm putting my money? I want that $25,000 car that looks like a brick that I can buy for my kid. And if I've got 3 kids, holy shit, that's 75 grand. Everybody here is going to make a shitload more money. Yeah. I'm old, so I must be right.
So let me ask you this question then. Maybe it's for the panel. Okay. I've been a Tesla investor since 2012. I'm a bull. I'm somebody who's very optimistic about the company. But the way this story is starting to unfold is that all the different hypotheses around if Tesla were to do this, if Tesla were to come out with this $25,000 car, it would put the car market upside down. It would kill the value proposition of every other car that's out there, especially in markets where the lower price levels are underserved. So it sounds like when this car comes to fruition, is Tesla just going to have a market all to its own? Will it have no competition? How should we think about that equation?
I think their biggest issue will be how can they produce enough to satisfy demand. That's really what it is. And right now, they only have enough factory space to build 2 million vehicles a year. They just said it today. So they're going to have to online that Mexico plant and other plants in other areas of the world to serve the entire world. Because I think small cars and $25,000 vehicles are better served for the entire world. Europe, Southeast Asia, even China, smaller cars will sell better. In the US, people still want that mid-size SUV, the 3-row SUV. So if Tesla was only focused on the American market, they'd be manufacturing a 3-row SUV to compete with the Explorer, the Telluride, the Grand Cherokee. But if they're focusing on small car, that's a global focus.
And that's why I hired Corey, because he's absolutely right.
Yeah. So off of Corey's point, I was talking after the presentation. I was asking Tesla exec why they chose Monterrey, Mexico, as their next Gigafactory. Why didn't they just, double Austin, and why Mexico? And he was saying that Mexico is not for the U.S. They're not looking to make cars and send it to the U.S. Mexico is for new markets. And Mexico is for Latin America, for South America. But then as I was driving here, I'm like, wait a minute. It's like, that means that factory really is for the next gen vehicle. It's not for any current, Tesla vehicle. So if you think about it, they're making a factory, they're starting the factory right now, or they're gonna be building it. The factory capacity, who knows, 2 or 3 million or something. It's gonna be for the next gen vehicle. When is this gonna happen? Well, how long does it take to build a factory, and then to start the production of the next vehicle. Anyways, long story, basically Tesla is launching their next phase of their growth right now. And Monterrey, Mexico is their next gen vehicle, factory for a whole nother part of the world that they're not serving right now. So interesting stuff.
So as I always say, listen to David. He knows what he's talking about.
Any other thoughts from the panel on this topic? No? Okay. So is the Gen 3 car the biggest takeaway from this presentation, or is there anything else that popped out to you so that we discussed 4680, we discussed Gen 3. Is there anything else that was mentioned that you thought was worth highlighting that hasn't been talked about?
How about the thing they didn't mention? And that was the motor. And I kind of knew that this was going to be coming down the road, but 30% more power at basically a less cost by going to a hairpin motor is huge. And they didn't say anything. But you know what? Look at that video. Look at that video. You're going to see where they're welding the tops, laser welding the tops of all those hairpins back together. I'm telling you what, I was sworn to secrecy, but even Corey can't keep me shut on this one. This is a big deal, folks. A huge deal. Huge. And they showed it on the video.
Sandy, you're fired. I'm kidding.
Actually, now I can retire.
Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, and then what they didn't show at all in the presentation was that inverter we saw that they were working on in that quality cell. It had 24 discrete MOSFETs, which was more than the 18 that are in the Model 3, the Model Y, the Model S, the Model X, the Plaid. And I think it's the discrete chip that they have to thermally control in the inverter. So they need a lot of them to convert the DC to AC so you can drive. So the battery is DC, roughly 400 volts, 350 nominal. You have to have the inverter convert that from DC to AC. So you have 3 sets, typically 3 sets of 6. They're actually growing from 3 sets of 6 to 3 sets of 8, which means you can handle a much higher voltage because you need more of them to handle voltage for the switching from DC to AC. We tear down every single EV not in the world, at least in the US. And when Sandy and I saw that through that test cell, we went over there and we started asking them questions. And we're like, hey, what's this for? Why is it different? Why is it a different form factor? So the way that they were thermal cooling it, the look at the form factor of it, the shape of it was all different. Never to be seen on a Tesla that we've ever torn down. So this was new. It was like either a prototype or already in production, rolling around on the road. But Sandy, what do you think?
There's nobody on the planet that's got 24 IGBTs. Or actually, they're called different things in different. So you might not recognize that word IGBT, but you probably might have heard of MOSFETs. And MOSFETs, IGBTs are slightly different, but kind of the same. That allows you to move from the mundane to the extraordinary. And when Corey told me, hey, there's 24 IGBTs on that cell over there, I kind of turned around and I said, oh, Corey's smoking dope again. But it wasn't. It wasn't. I looked over. I could not believe my eyes. I had to count it twice because something's wrong with my eyes. I'm dyslexic and want to. Anyways, I had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24. I about shit my pants. And then we saw the casing is sitting there. And I said, I'll be right back. And I walked right up there, and the guy that's in charge, I don't think you should be doing that. I pretended like I couldn't hear. If you're old, you can get away with anything. I mean, anything. So I went over, I had a look. I counted them up when I was nice and close, and I could tell what was going on. And then I started looking at casing. And we have a sketch.
Yeah.
Corey made a sketch of the casting.
Let me summarize this. The big deal is we already think that the Tesla powertrain portfolio is world-class leading. But the question is when can other OEMs catch up? This is another step change forward. If they're developing a new powertrain platform, then they're going to actually move even further ahead of the competition. Only days after Toyota says that the Model Y is a work of art. So now they're leaping further ahead in the future. They will actually most likely use their powertrain platform on all their vehicles because they're currently using, I think, the Generation 3 on the 3, the Y, the S, the X, and I thought the Cybertruck, based on what they showed when they revealed the Cybertruck in the past, but I think it's going to be on everything. Maybe, I don't know.
Plaid Plus, the question. Go ahead.
So one of the biggest, probably the biggest takeaway was this whole new assembly process for the next gen vehicle, where instead of assembling the car at one point, you're breaking it apart into different sections where you can assemble them separately all to the finish point and then just sticking them together at the end. It makes complete sense, and this is pretty much at the core of this new generation of manufacturing. The question.
Talk about the painting.
Oh, he's being told a secret right now.
The painting. Actually, I'll let you talk about that painting. The question I have is, Tesla is giving away their secret for the next gen vehicle. Is any automaker listening? Are they even going to try it? How long is it going to take them to really copy this, you know? And my hunch is they're not going to do anything about it for the longest time until years after the next gen vehicle comes out. They're getting slaughtered and they're going to start to do something, but it's going to be like years and years late. Anyway, Sandy, what about the painting?
I thought you were going to mention what they're going to be doing is they're going to be painting the lay down side. There's a bunch of different terms that I'm going to use that probably nobody cares about. But anyways, they're going to do the lay down body side ring, and they're going to paint that. Then they're going to paint the hood, the doors, and everything. And they're going to do them all separately because anybody that's got a brain knows, why would I want to put all the doors on, then I want to take them off, then I want to put them on later on? Why is that? That's just plain old stupid. But you know what? If you can take all of the major components and paint them and then put them together once, think about it. I put the doors on, I paint it, I take the doors off, and then I put them back on. That's 4 processes. What about this? I get the body side done, and then I put the door on one time. I mean, this doesn't take rocket science, okay? Anybody with a brain knows that it's easier to do it if you only do it once. And that's really what that was the crux of the thing with painting and whatnot. This is a brilliant video. I think every kid, 12, actually, we've had some genius kids that are about 7. Every kid should be watching this to know what the future is, to know what a genius we've got in our midst with Elon Musk.
It's pretty amazing. He's pointing to, there's a looping video of a Tesla bot, the Tesla bot video on there. I don't know if we can throw it up on the main screen, but let me ask this one question, and then we're going to do a little bit of Q&A in the crowd. So if you do want to ask a question, do line up here. We'll do like 3 questions. We'll start with Sam, and then we'll go down the line. After today's presentation, are you more confident, less confident, or right about where you were about your trajectory for Tesla's future and its valuation?
Check. All right. So I'd say more confident. I think that, again, I'll say, Tesla's been telegraphing what they're doing for a long time. And I think they've gone into more detail and kind of shed some light on what's going to happen. And I think all of that detail leads to some more comfort and confidence in their trajectory.
I think I'm slightly more bullish because I feel like Tesla has shed their imposter syndrome. For years, they're the little kid on the block that the big OEMs kind of dissed and ignored. But now they're looked at as the leader in the market, particularly for EVs. So what I sensed was an air of confidence among all the presenters today that they no longer need to defend what they're doing because they're leading, because they think that what they're doing is right, and they don't need to prove anything to anybody anymore.
So now what I saw today got me a bit worried, and I'm concerned that maybe Ford is going to take over Tesla. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I just wanted to check if people are listening, and nobody is listening.
There's at least 4 people listening, yeah.
Yeah, 4 people listen. No, so what I saw today, you were asking, Fazad,
More confident, less confident, yeah.
The one thing that made me very confident today is how much flesh there is around things I look at with a spreadsheet and doing analysis. And by flesh, I mean the team. So you had like 15 people on the contributing to the presentation. I would say the average tenure is close to 10 years. So this kind of idea that there is a lot of churn at Tesla, you realize it's not really true. These people have been like in the whole story for the last 10 years. And they are like really, really motivated. They're motivated by the mission. And they work together, like as Sandy mentioned, nobody else in the world works together like the way they do. And in reality, today, I got worried for like other car manufacturers, to be honest. The more I see, the more I learn about Tesla, the more I feel like I don't really know how others are going to be able to adapt to that.
Rob?
Yeah, I would say I am still confident. I think I'm usually pretty confident in Tesla, and I think this is an event that really just reinforced a lot of that feeling. I think Tesla demonstrated that they have a clear goal and they have a clear path to get to that goal, as we so often hear from them. And as Sam kind of kicked it off with, usually the things that Tesla talks about, they can accomplish. I think you can set autonomy in its own little bucket, and I think that's a sort of a different problem set. But when it's come to the engineering, pretty much 100% hit rate from Tesla on hitting their targets on things. So yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than all of us would like. And yeah, we would have loved to see like a new car today, but whenever it comes, next couple of years, I think it's going to be an amazing product. And I think everything that Tesla talked through today just made that, very clear. And to Pierre's point about like competition, no one's thinking about the problem in the way that Tesla is thinking about it. And if you're not starting with the right problem or starting with the right questions, you're not going to get the right answer. So it's pretty clear that Tesla's got the right answer.
For me, I would say I am more excited. I wouldn't say less or more confident. I'm pretty confident of Tesla's future regardless. But today was about the details of how they're going to drop the cost of making a car by 50%, which sounds incredible and almost unbelievable. And I think before today, most people, especially maybe some Tesla investors, give the benefit of the doubt to Elon and say, oh, they'll figure it out somehow to drop the cost 50%. But today was the actual details of here's how we're going to do it. And I think at the crux of it is this new assembly paradigm. And I think this is just the beginning. I really think we're going to have to think about this deeper because it's really a revolutionary change in the assembly process of a car. And also the whole 4680, where they're already pumping out the dry electrodes and making the cans and everything. You just stick these pieces together and you've got Tesla showing us exactly what their next gen vehicle is going to be like, but it's in full detail now, you know? And I like how they didn't completely lay it out where you have to kind of put together the pieces, connect the dots, and you'll get it. But if you're not thinking, then you still probably won't get it, you know? You kind of have to use your brain a little bit to put everything together. So anyways, it's definitely a good event.
Sandy?
Okay, I'm twice as old as anybody here on the panel, and I've seen everything, pretty much. I'm going to tell you right now that Tesla is going to crush, and I mean that sincerely, crush the rest of the automotive industry. And the reason for that is because of one person, Elon Musk. If that guy disappears, then I might change my mind. But at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you simply, you've made a wise choice in buying that stock. And I am going to tell you right now, nothing, absolutely nothing or nobody is going to get in the way. So I'm a little less wishy-washy than everybody else. And the reason for that is because I'm old. I don't give a shit. I can say whatever I want. Cheers.
Not financial advice. Okay. 3 quick questions from the crowd. Who wants to ask a question here? Okay.
Yeah, good evening. So this is kind of a question that may impact Austin. From an engineering and a supply chain, like Mr. Farzad over here, standpoint, do you see some kind of integration of a Tesla tunnel between Gigafactory and the Huda railhead? Because essentially legacy auto, usually the older factories had railheads built into the factories. So would this be viable from a cost benefit and for probably a per unit standpoint and cost per mile drilling? Thank you.
Sandy, this one is for you.
Oh, you prick. I can't believe it.
No, I feel too young to take that
wasn't
question.
on film. Actually, I don't see any problem with Tesla finding people. I don't see any problem with Austin becoming a gigantic center for automotive. Maybe they'll turn into the new Detroit. I'm not sure. But I guarantee you nothing is going to get in the way of the progress that Elon's put in place. Nothing. Zero. I am 100% in back of everything I saw today. I was already a fan, but at the end of the day, nothing is going to get in the way of Tesla. Nothing. Zero.
Next question.
We talk a lot about cars, but did you hear anything new today about the energy business that will let you model better? Because we don't cover that much.
Energy, right?
Yeah.
Energy. Questions around energy.
I think that's the first time Tesla gave like a guide for the size of the market, like the amount of batteries that is necessary to like transition the whole world to sustainable energy. And they gave that number, and so they estimated that we need 240 terawatt hours of batteries to move the world to sustainable energy. And to put that into context, they expect to sell 1 terawatt hour of battery packs, of mega packs. So that means, you know, on 2030, 2035 horizon, the battery pack business could be a third of the size of the auto business, something like that.
And then the other thing that they highlighted is just from the strategic angle of being able to pretty much not be afraid of having too many battery cells, right? So if you're just a EV maker, you want to match your cell supply to the vehicles you're making, because if you have too many, then that just goes into inventory. If you have an energy business, then any spillover can go into the stationary energy storage business. And they highlighted that, at the right price point for a utility, there's a huge amount of existing demand out there. These batteries can replace peaker plants. And so there's this sitting demand waiting to be fulfilled. So if you have that spillover, you can go right there.
I think one thing that was interesting, it's not anything really new, but I liked how Tesla presented it. They showed that slide of like cumulative energy storage deployed, and I think it was 16 gigawatt hours. And when you just see that graph up to 1 terawatt hour for 2030 or around that time frame, it just shows how early that business is, even though it's still a multi-billion-dollar business already. So I think that just gives us a real sense of where it's at so far. And then you think about Lathrop, it's a 40 gigawatt hour facility, and they talked about converting a JCPenney warehouse in under a year. So I think that has just a good way of presenting why a lot of people are really excited about the energy business, and it doesn't really get its due for sure, but I think it's we're going to start entering the curve where it starts to get more attention and more credit for the business that it's become.
Okay, one more.
How's it going, guys? I'm the Kilowatts. My name is Ryan Levinson. A little bit of a hardball question for you guys. Historically, we've heard a lot about autonomy, and Rob Maurer kind of alluded to this. What are your thoughts on why autonomy wasn't as talked about today? Why didn't we hear more about FSD's impact on the financials? I mean, today could have almost been manufacturing day rather than investor day when you exclude FSD. So for anyone, why did we not hear as much about autonomy or FSD today?
You need to subscribe to my research. It's because robotaxi, I have doubts. And I think I convinced Elon. He has doubts as well. No, that's not true.
I've got a different take, but I think it's because we just had AI Day.
And Sam agrees
I
with
think
me.
they spent a good amount of time talking about it. So I think they had Ashok up there, and he kind of gave the summary version of it. But I think they've talked quite a bit about it recently, and I think it's kind of as simple as that. It's my perspective.
No,
Go for it. Oh yeah, I'd agree with that. They just had the big discussion about it, and I think it was given equal time. They went through each division and said, here's what's happening. They gave the update on full self-driving, and I think the great thing about full self-driving is you get the update, every time they release it. So I think it's the most talked about, most discussed thing, and definitely, from our perspective, that's where the asymmetric upside can be.
One thing that I thought was kind of interesting that I don't think probably got much attention yet, and I think Pierre will probably be happy about this, is that I did notice that when they were talking about the next generation platform, they mentioned that they'll have robotaxi variants of it, and that they would talk a little bit more about that, at a later date. So I think prior to this, there's been some uncertainty, and Tesla's kind of communicated that the next generation platform would just be a dedicated robotaxi. So today was kind of the first time I felt like they shifted a little bit back towards this is just going to be a product for consumers that they can drive, and eventually they'll hopefully evolve it into a robotaxi and get there. But I think that will give people a little bit more confidence in being able to model out growth beyond the Model 3 and the Model Y, where you don't have to count on autonomy, being level 5 or something like that to take Tesla to a higher market cap. So I was pleased to see that from an institutional perspective. I think that's going to make a little bit of a difference, at least.
So if you actually listen carefully to what Zach said, Zach talked about robotaxi and said something very interesting. He talked about the long-term financial model of Tesla, and he said, I'm going to continue to take OPEX down as a percentage of revenues. I'm going to maintain gross margin at healthy levels. And then after that, he said, and if FSD comes to fruition and changes the economic model, then it will have like a very significant impact on our economic model. And I thought it was a very, very good way to present what this opportunity is. It's still like something that is, as you say, a very asymmetric potential upside, something that could work. I have personally my doubts. That's not something I bet on. When I model out Tesla and when I look at what Tesla could be worth, I don't have anything about robotaxis. If it happens, it would be an additional upside in the way I look about it. And I was very happy to hear that that's the way Zach is running the business. He's not counting on it, basically. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but he's not counting on it.
So one way to think about that question or answer is AI Day last year was Elon Musk saying, we win. AI, we're just way ahead. It's going to make our cars profitable and more basically efficient, more sustainable, all that. But then perhaps he got some feedback from some people and institutional investors who say, we don't believe it. When is it going to come? And so perhaps today was Elon Musk saying, forget it. Even without FSC, if you don't believe it, we still win. Even with just even with just drivable cars, with nothing FSC, we still win. And here's how we do it. So whether you believe in FSC or not, either way, it's kind of a two-pronged approach, I think, by Tesla.
Okay, so I'm just going to say something quick. We've looked at everything about everybody. Very few people have taken apart everybody's car. And I believe that Tesla is about, look over here at Corey, somewhere between 6 to 8 years ahead of everybody else in self-driving. The software is better. The controller systems are better. The ADAS system, which is the module that you have inside, is better. I don't see anybody catching up anytime soon because they're stuck in the old paradigm of, well, I got to do this and you got to do that, and don't you try and get into my silo and on and on. So again, I don't know how anybody's going to catch up to Tesla, but if they do, it'll be like only because all the plants burned down the same day.
All right, we're going to do one more. Can I get a lady? We're going to get a lady. Here we go.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, no, don't give her the microphone. No.
Sandy. Hi, everybody. Just quick question. Did they talk about any incorporation with SpaceX or the Boring Company or Neuralink or anything under X Holdings?
Oh,
No.
okay, so here's the deal. I'm the only guy on this floor that actually has worked on rocket ships, and it's in my resume. You can find about it. And I'm telling you what, any idea that we ever had for L'Oreal or Boeing or Lockheed Martin or anybody else on the planet has been implemented already. SpaceX, Corey and I toured that place. I looked at their rocket motors, which actually...
you can talk about that.
Yeah, can I? Okay, so actually, I had actually made suggestions, and Elon Musk said, hey, that's a good idea. Haven't we done that before? Okay, so when we were down there, I walked through their whole system where everybody else used these machined, stupid-ass,
Titanium.
beehive system and a whole bunch of rivets and horse shit. And I would say, why don't we just weld this? You're only going up once. And that's what everybody else did. They're welding it. Everything that Tesla does in SpaceX, or let me rephrase that. Elon Musk does on SpaceX is absolutely brilliant. Like I said, I can't say enough about him. He's the Einstein of our age. That's a fact.
Well, actually, we're actually out of time. All right, everybody. Thank you very much, Sam, Corey, Pierre, Rob, Dave, Sandy. Thank you all so much. Thank you, everybody who came tonight. Thank you, everybody at home watching on remote. Thank you on our back, Matt. Thank you, everybody.